life. I hope everybody is having a great day today. I am going to continue in my series on discussing my personal genotype results. You all have asked for that. I think it's a great question, and so we have discussed several of my gene mutations and abnormalities or abnormal expressions, and so today we're going to discuss another one. And again, please keep in mind that if you have had your own genotype testing done and you score for very high, or it depends on what test you're using as to what the parameters are, but if your gene expression for this particular gene you have also scored an abnormal, then understand that that doesn't necessarily mean it's exactly the same abnormality as mine. As I've discussed in every video, there are different nuances to each genotype. And so, for example, it could be dominant-dominant, it could be dominant-recessive, it could be recessive-dominant, it could be that you have a deletion, it could be that you have an allele. There's multiple different things to talk about and look at when we're talking about an abnormal gene expression. So just because you and I both have fill in the blank abnormal gene mutation, it doesn't mean we have the exact same thing. So the things that I'm going to tell you that I know are good for me to do for mine may not be the same that we would tell you for yourself, but you at least are going to get some real terms data about what these genes do in the body, and then some things you can do, kind of broad strokes of what you can do to help the gene expression. As you know, as I've said in every video that I've talked about genomes, I absolutely believe we can positively impact our gene expression. I do not believe that just because genetically or in your family history there is XYZ, I don't believe that means you have to have XYZ. And I think I'm living proof of that. So a lot of people call that biohacking. We've been biohacking in the natural world since long before biohacking was a thing. So today we're going to talk about the CRP gene. That is C-reactive protein gene. C-reactive protein is a protein that is produced in the liver. It is responsible for how your body manages inflammation of all types, but very particularly cardiovascular inflammation. And it also is very responsible for how your body's metabolism works. So if you have an abnormal expression for the C-reactive protein gene, then obviously you are at higher risk. In most cases, you're at higher risk for cardiovascular inflammation and or generalized inflammation in the body, and you're at higher risk for having a slow or a low burning metabolism. So, and of course, I think those two things are true of me for sure. Now, there are certain tests that we can measure with this one. This is actually one that has been very widely studied, and so you can find a good bit of information out there about C-reactive protein. It's actually even one that most doctors are now ordering as a standard part of their profiles, I'm glad to say, when we're talking about inflammation or cardiovascular risk. We like a particular panel at Whole for Life that is a cardiac IQ panel. There's one of them that just checks multiple levels of high sensitivity C-reactive protein, because just a standard C-reactive protein does not give us all the information we need. And then the other one that we like is the cardiac IQ panel that checks that, but also checks all of those APO, lipo, B proteins and A proteins and the sensitivity proteins, and breaks down your bad cholesterol and your very low density cholesterol and your high density cholesterol and all of that. I like that panel a whole lot too, because it gives us great data about whether or not we need to be worried about your cholesterol, whether or not we need to worry about your cardiovascular health. So, but there are, my point being, there are lab tests that we can actually monitor that. And this is a great example for me to talk about with that buzzword biohacking, or positively affecting gene expression, which is how I have described it for close to 20 years. Because back in the day, before I knew anything about really getting my body healthy, my C-reactive protein was elevated. And back then, we only knew to check the kind of broad stroke C-reactive protein. The first time I checked the more sensitive C-reactive protein, it also was elevated. I have maintained a normal, low normal, which is really what you want to see with somebody with my genotype, a low normal C-reactive protein for quite a few years now. I think the last time it was elevated, I had sustained an injury and it was slightly elevated then, which made perfect sense. Probably if we had checked it right after my spinal fracture, it probably would have been a little higher than what it is now as my baseline, but I doubt very seriously that it would have been outside of the normal limits, because I have put in a lot of work to keep my inflammatory markers in check. Things that you can do kind of across the board, no matter whether you have dominant, recessive dominant, all those different scenarios I gave you, things you can do across the board. Number one, as far as for inflammation and cardiovascular inflammation, I cannot say enough, our proprietary Whole for Life Heart Complete supplement, that checks so many boxes, not only for systemic inflammation, but for cardiovascular inflammation and cardiovascular health. A high potency EPA DHA, again, every time I mention this, I hope that I'm going to be able to tell you that mine is finally here. It's really a good thing that it's not here yet, because that tells you just how particular I am about the sourcing, the processing, the packaging, everything. But hopefully by the middle to the end of September, we will be able to give you or offer our high potency EPA DHA, which obviously I'm going to be biased to. But in the meantime, we do have another very, very good one. It's the same one that I take. And so there are options for that. But high potency EPA DHA is a no-brainer when you have a C-reactive protein anomaly, or genetic anomaly, I should say. Now, the metabolism part of that, that's another area that not very many people talk about. A lot of people don't even realize that your metabolism is directly tied to C-reactive protein, but it is. Another thing that, and so this kind of goes hand in hand with metabolism, but another thing that you got to be really conscientious about, particularly when we're dealing with C-reactive protein. Remember, I told you it was made in the liver, so you need to make sure your liver health is on point. I think kind of standard general rule of thumb, again, I'm not your doctor, I'm not anybody's doctor, I'm not here to diagnose, treat, or cure you. These are my opinions only. This should not be considered medical advice. But I think a general rule of thumb is a round of liver detox for someone that has no problems and just wants to stay healthy. I think every 6 months you should do a round of, I prefer our Whole for Life liver detox. And part of that is because a lot of liver detoxes out there, and this was part of my motivation, most of my motivation actually, they'll have 1 or 2 ingredients that you need. They'll have maybe 3 ingredients that you need. None of them are strong enough to actually do anything when they're combined like that. And then you're taking 6 or 7 pills, and that's hard enough for your liver and your kidneys in the first place. And your body's not going to absorb all of that when you're having to take such high quantities. So our liver detox has all of the proprietary herbs that you need, and it's 2 liquid caps, and you just do it once a day until the bottle's empty. Super easy. If you're trying to address something specific, then of course dosing would be different. But liver health is very important, and that would be where some peptides, some lifestyle modification, Mediterranean diet. If you haven't seen the theme yet for me, you should. Mediterranean lifestyle is the way to go for C-reactive protein anomaly. And of course, not only that, but also just making sure that if you're a candidate for a pure peptide, GLP or NAD, or even MOTS-C, some of those that get on the mitochondrial or the cellular level and really, really address inflammation and insulin sensitivity, those are great additions for you, and I'm so thankful that we in the United States now have that available to us. So that is C-reactive protein gene expression in a nutshell. If you have specific questions about it, let us know. The other supplement that is a no-brainer for me with that is our Inflacom. It's like I was telling you all along. It's so nice that we can check so many boxes, because sometimes it can become overwhelming, even for me, when you look at somebody's genotype and there's literally 30 things that are recommended. It's so nice when you can check, say, 20 of those boxes with 2 proprietary supplements. That's fantastic. So for me, Inflacom, Heart Complete, complete liver detox occasionally, and the EPA DHA most every day. And then I am, of course, doing the peptides that we've talked about before. Have a great day, guys.